It being 5 o'clock, I'm going to call the regular council meeting of Tuesday, November 9th, 2021 to order. We'll begin with a land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississauga and Ashbeg. We offer our gratitude to the First People for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. And please, I would ask our council and the audience for a moment of silence so that we can quietly reflect on our duty to the community that we are trying to serve. Thank you. Members of the public, staff, presenters, members of council, please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded and made available on the internet. And colleagues, just before we get into our meeting, I'd like to say a couple of words to recognize Remembrance Day. It's going to be on this Thursday. Duty, honor, valor, courage. Words to live by, and for some, to die by. For those of us who are here today, we owe a debt to those who served, who fought, and who died. It is a debt that in a larger sense, we can never fully repay. But there is something that we can, should, and must do. And that is to always remember. It is through the act of remembrance that we honor those who served and remind ourselves how precious the hard-won peace is to Canada and our community. To our veterans and to all those here today or who are watching on our broadcast, I say, we will never forget. And I'd ask that we observe a moment of silence in honor of those we lost. Thank you, colleagues. I'd ask if there's any declaration of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof. Madam Clerk, please note that none were noted. We'll go to the minutes for our session of October 26th. Sherry,
Move them.
second by Donna. Any questions? All in favor? Those are carried. So we'll go then immediately to our deputations, which is a public meeting regarding revised building permit fee schedule. And Robert, will you read the purpose of the public meeting?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so this is an opportunity for the public to provide their thoughts on the change in building permit fee methodology, collection methodology. I provided council with a brief report which kind of summarizes how we've gotten to where we are today. So my report notes that at the recent council meeting on the 12th, that council considered a report that was prepared by our Deputy Chief Building Official, Paul Monks, who's here this evening to answer any questions council may have or the public might have. In the reports, we summarize the fact that council had engaged the support of Performance Concepts Consulting to review aspects of the building and planning department. One of the recommendations they made was that we should amend how we calculate permit fees from what is currently a value-based approach, so based on the value of construction, to something that is more based on a cost per area methodology. This is a methodology that is used by a number of other municipalities. So in light of that, Paul undertook to review what the appropriate fee should be based on council's goal of collecting 100% of the costs associated with delivering the service. And in addition, council made it clear that they didn't want to see us collect anymore as a result of the change in methodology than we are collecting by virtue of the current methodology. So with that in mind, he did a thorough review of the options available. We came up with a methodology that recognizes a per square foot rate for a variety of different construction types, and we believe would result in essentially collection of fees that are similar to what we would collect had we maintained our current system. So with that, Mr. Chair, we can open up to the general public to provide input on what they've read.
Thank you very much, Rob. And I'll just make a note that this is a public meeting. We're here for input. This will be referred to our next meeting of council after we hear the public input. I know we have two guests in the chamber. I'm going to call them then in a minute. I believe somebody did register online. Amanda Rose. I don't know whether Amanda is online.
Amanda is available.
Okay, Amanda, the floor is yours if you want to make some comments or ask some questions.
I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Then I'll turn to the members of the public. Which of you two gentlemen would like to go? Ron, you were here first. So. I'm not here to listen for more than anything. Okay. Sure. Same here as well. Just here to understand the change. Okay, thank you. Colleagues from council. Comments? Yes, Anita.
I just think it's a much better way of generating the associate fees for going by square footage as opposed to the final cost or value of the property or the buildings being built. I think it's a much easier way for staff also to figure out.
Thank you very much, Sherry.
Thank you, through you. We went to the public quite often while we were looking at our building and planning and trying to determine what changes were necessary if needed. And we heard time and again from various people that they felt we should be using the square foot way of calculating what should be paid rather than the construction costs. And given the cost of construction materials now, I think we've done the right thing. So it's really based on information that we receive from the public that we're going in this direction. And there are a lot of municipalities that use this mechanism to decide how the billing fees are placed. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Just Donna, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you. Through you to Rob and maybe Dave. I know I've asked this question before, and Rob indicated that he was going to try and have it complete by the end of this year. And it's the calculation for removing some of the items like decks out of the calculation for lot coverage. So just wondering if you, once it's getting closer to the end of the year, if you think you'll have that ready.
Yeah, that is intended to be part of our housekeeping zoning bylaw amendment process, and you're right in that we did anticipate having it done by now, right? So that was our goal. We've just had a few challenges in terms of staffing. That hopefully will be addressed here in the not too distant future, and that'll give us the bandwidth to carry on with this project. My goal, if at all possible, I'd like to bring a draft of the housekeeping amendment for council review before the end of the year, so probably in December, so that you could take a look at it. Then we can set the public meeting so that the public can give us their thoughts on what the changes are proposed. And so that's something that could be passed early in the new year.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks, Rob. I understand the roadblocks you've had.
Just to make a couple comments and directed at you, Rob, and just to confirm for the public, this is a revenue neutral process in two respects. One, generally, under legislation, our fees are intended to be set at a level to cover our specific costs in respect of the building department, correct?
That's correct, yes.
And secondly, that the change in these fee schedules, although it changes individual fees, is a revenue neutral exercise. So we don't collect any more using square footage than we would collect if we used a value of construction calculation.
That is the goal for sure. Yep.
And I think when Paul provided us with some examples on an average single-family house, that we found that we became much more competitive with many of our neighboring jurisdictions and like communities across the province.
Yes, that's correct. The whole goal for this project was to ensure that our service, which is not profit motivated, results in a revenue neutral conclusion to support our services that we provide.
And I would also want to make a note to thank staff. There was a lot of work, Paul, you and Rob and others that went into the study to come up with this formulation. And as Sherry noted, this was something that we had dealt with when our consultant went through it. And we had a fair amount of public input at that time as well. Okay, colleagues, we need somebody to, I guess, just receive the report. Anita and Donna, and this will come back. Rob, at our next meeting?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay, so all those in favor? Okay, thank you. That concludes our public meeting. Thank you. And we will now move on with the balance of the agenda. If I can sort my papers out. Okay, so question period. Are there any questions?
No questions.
Okay, in-house, no questions? Yes, sir. You need to go to the mic and identify yourself. Right behind it.
Good evening. My name is Elkat. I work for Remax Eastern in Peterborough. I do live in Selwyn. I'm new to Selwyn for the last few years. I'm considering possibly rebuilding where I am. And I was wondering, I'm very unfamiliar with what the costs are today on what the permit costs are today rebuilding or what the new ones may be. So I'm understanding they may be neutral. So I think I might have to possibly have a separate meeting with you guys to understand the costs of it.
Yeah. By all means, we're happy to answer those types of questions. Just to give you a brief overview. So by today's standard, we'd collect $14.54 per thousand of estimated value. Right? If you thought your renovation was $100,000,
Yeah.
it would be $1,454. The standard we're working towards would be a per square foot value, and it's $1.50 per square foot for finished renovation or for finished construction value. So, or not value, but finished construction area. So, if you were to call, give us a sense of what the scope of work was and the square footage, we could help you with what the and permit fee would be.
Great, that's easy.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on then to municipal officers and staff reports. We have a report from the CAO on organizational updates. Janice?
Thank you. Seeing as I had some technological difficulties last time trying to use my laptop, I thought I'd come down tonight to do it within the council chambers. So as council will recall, in 2019 and 2020, we did undertake a number of studies to have a look at our service areas and in some cases look at our organizational structure. We looked at the Building and Planning Department, the Fire Department, Water and Sewer Services, Parks and Recreation Services, and Landfill Site Services. All of those studies were funded through the Municipal Modernization Fund. In accordance with council's direction at the time, we did prioritize the needs of the Building and Planning Department, and council considered a report with respect to that department in December of 2020. Excuse me, at that time, we also did consider a change with regard to the Facilities Maintenance Coordinator position, and some of those duties were realigned as well. You can't hear me? Okay, so we've continued to work through other areas of our service and are providing some additional recommendations for you this evening. As we all know, the demands of provincial regulation and legislation, expectations of council, expectations of the public, it all continues to grow. So we continually try to make sure that we have the adequate resources in place to meet those demands and to evolve as our requirements evolve. So really the recommendations that are in this report kind of fall into three different categories. So there's a couple of areas where we're recommending new positions, completely new positions to the organization. One area where we're recommending that a position that has been contract for a number of years become a permanent position. And in a couple of situations, just some recognition of some revised job duties that have kind of evolved over time as well. So with respect to new positions, the first one that's being recommended is the position of Deputy Fire Chief. The Fire Service Review report that was prepared by Dillon Consulting did recommend that the township provide some additional resources to support the training needs in particular of the department, as well as reviewing the volunteer roles of the deputy chief positions that we have in place. So we took that recommendation and established a committee consisting of the deputy chief, the assistant deputy chief, the chief, the training coordinator, our HR coordinator, and myself to kind of to work through that those needs and come forward with a recommendation for you. So at this point, the recommendation is that a full-time position of deputy fire chief be added to that department. As we all know, a comprehensive training program is really a very essential component of our fire department operations. It's a requirement under the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and we do want to ensure the safety of all of our firefighters and make sure that all of the programs we have in place, the legislative programs, are meeting those requirements. So certainly the existing structure we have that has provided for a part-time training coordinator for sure has served us very well. Mike has done an outstanding job of meeting our requirements, but in reality, the scope of those requirements really has just grown beyond what a part-time position can manage to accomplish. Through our discussions as well, there were some other areas of concern and maybe some gaps that were identified in terms of our current structure and the use of volunteer resources, in particular, some of the duties that are being performed by the volunteer deputy chiefs. And most especially, I'd say, having the proper supervision for the department in the absence of the fire chief. It's really just not reasonable to expect in the future that volunteer positions are going to carry out those types of duties for us. So that position, I've provided a little bit of detail in terms of what the responsibilities of the position would include. For sure, a major component of it would be the maintenance and development of the training program. Another recommendation from the report was to develop an officer mentorship program and kind of succession planning program for officers in the department. So that would be another major role. Taking on the oversight of apparatus and equipment, procurement and maintenance, assisting just in general with other administrative and operational requirements of the department, and of course, assuming the duties and responsibilities of the chief in his absence. I don't know if you want to, do you want to go position by position?
Yeah, why don't you just go through the whole thing and then I'll.
Oh, okay. All right. So the next one, and this has really been on the radar for some time, It's the Financial Services Asset Management Assistant position, which would be a new position. So as we're all well aware, in accordance with OREG 58817, as has been amended on numerous occasions, we have to prepare asset management plans in respect of our core municipal infrastructures assets. So that will be stormwater, wastewater, water, and road infrastructure by July 1st of 2022. And with respect to all of our other infrastructure assets by July 1st of 2024. Certainly, we've gone through a lot of work to work towards our core municipal infrastructure asset management plan. But really, in terms of being able to carry on with that work and being able to meet the requirements of the next set of assets, and to make sure that we really can integrate those asset management plans and use them as part of our decision making, as part of our budgeting, just as part of our daily operations. Some additional resources are required to allow us to do that. Major responsibilities of the position would be obviously to support the development, implementation, maintenance, and improvement of the asset management plans, and to support the management team and the finance department in terms of the related budget and financial planning processes. Very labor-intensive process at the outset. So I think, again, the focus there would be on asset management at the outset. But certainly over time, as we get into more of a maintenance role, I think the position then would be able to provide some other areas of support for the finance department as well, just to take some of the load off some of the other staff, through financial analysis, support with the budget process, that sort of thing. So again, I just did provide a little bit of detail with respect to the core duties of the position, which are really very similar to what I just reviewed, so I won't go over that again. In terms of the contract position that we're talking about, so we I believe it was 2019, sorry, I'm just trying to find my spot here. Here we go. Created the position with the support of some funding through FCM of Climate Change Coordinator. And that position really has, over the last few years, again, become a very integral component of the Community and Corporate Services Department, assisting with the Community Transportation Program, which is our rural transportation system that we now have up and running, implementation of our Clear Bag programs, development of various public outreach and programs to support sustainability initiatives, and our commitments through our Climate Change Action Plan. Certainly has supported working through some of the recommendations that came out of the Cambium Landfill Site Services Review, waste diversion opportunities. We'll follow through with additional of those recommendations as well, such as the audits and operational improvements that were recommended. So really, in terms of, and I guess another component with this position, when we did make some changes to the Facilities Maintenance Coordinator Projects Management position when Scott retired, certainly some of the things that were in that position were offloaded into this position. So the major responsibilities there, again, would be the management of our contract for our rural transportation system, implementation of initiatives in the Climate Change Action Plan. And in particular there, there's a lot of corporate initiatives. So looking at our own operations, improving our energy efficiency, looking at our fleet, trying to reduce our carbon footprint. But a big part of it really to really make some significant changes is the community component of that. And that's getting out, and it's the outreach to the public and assistance with the public to try and change behaviors isn't maybe the right word, but just to promote actions that will, on a community level, really help us to decrease our carbon footprint and our impact on the environment. The energy management plan, the required data collection and reporting, that is an item that was previously in the facilities maintenance coordinator position. This position has been doing all of that work. Our annual greenhouse gas emissions reporting, certainly, as I mentioned, assisting with programs at the landfill site, promoting waste diversion, public education, again, around that, meeting our regulatory timeframes around reporting requirements, and just, again, improved ability to take on additional additional programs and seeking out additional funding for projects that would support sustainability. So the recommendation there is to take the contract position and create a full-time position on our organizational structure. And that would really allow us to ensure that we have the continuity of service for all of those types of services within the Corporate and Community Services Department. And as part of this, it would be recommending a change in title from Climate Change Coordinator to Sustainability Coordinator, because I think that would really encompasses what the intention of the position is more accurately. And finally, there were a couple of areas where we've noted some changes in job duties that people have been taking on. So certainly one of those areas is with the, sorry, I'm just having trouble with my pages here again. The Communications and Marketing Coordinator, sorry. And I think certainly when that position was created in 2019, it had been a recommendation on the organizational chart since our 2015 organizational review. And in 2019, council did approve of that position being put on the org chart. And it was really looked at a way to help provide effective public information and marketing services. It was designed to support and assist with the communication demands, social media, our website, maintenance and content management, and just to coordinate and communicate across all of our service areas effectively. Position was also structured to provide some support to the Economic Development Coordinator position in terms of marketing the municipality as well around tourism and business marketing. I think over the last few years, certainly the position has fulfilled that role, but also has shifted really to take on more direct responsibility over many of those areas, more direct management of activities and projects and decision-making associated with that. So we've seen that in both the marketing and communications side and also on project coordination side. Another component of this position, and it was always there, was grant writing. We have had significant success with our ability to be successful with grant applications, and that role is really just, it's growing. There's opportunities out there, but you have to make sure that you have someone who can do a good job of sourcing them out for you and finding those opportunities and then writing the appropriate grant applications. And it's expanded to include a lot of the reporting back to the various funding agencies, and in some cases even helping to manage some of the projects that we've received funding for. And then finally, in the Public Works Department, in the landfill site in particular, we've typically operated there with a full-time scale house operator with backup support for that scale operation. So that's the frontline customer service person dealing with the people as they're coming across the scale into the landfill site and then back out. Support for that and backfilling, I guess maybe is the best word. Not even backfilling, just filling in for lunch hours, vacation time, sick time, that sort of thing was covered off by the landfill site operator. And we did try having part-time staff available for that. Maintaining that part-time resource, just because of the types of times that we require this backfilling support, has proved to be very, very difficult to both engage people, schedule them, and just keep somebody in that position. And with the landfill site operator, he is very busy with other areas, so it is sometimes problematic having him available at all those times to support the operation of the scale. So we do have on the organizational chart 2 current positions of landfill attendant general laborer, which do not include the responsibilities around the scale house operation. So the recommendation is to change one of those job descriptions so that position would be required and able to support the operation of the scale house as well. So again, that would provide really for a more effective use of our existing resources, ensure adequate coverage for the scale house operation. So make sure we have continuity for customer service there. And obviously it would support our efforts for cross-training and succession planning as well. So that really is the last position we're talking about. There is some information here with regard to financial impact. So with both the sustainability coordinator and the financial services asset management assistant, we have grants in place that would support those positions and support the phase-in of those positions. The FCM grant for the sustainability coordinator would be complete as of the first quarter of 2022, but the community transportation grant actually carries over to 2025. So that would provide us a good opportunity for phasing in of that position. And certainly with the financial services asset management assistant, the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, what we refer to as OSIF, is there as well and able to help us support the phase-in of that position. So I did provide for you just kind of a high level overview of what that could look like for 2022. It's certainly based on high ends of the salary range. So it's an overestimate, if anything, but really just give you an idea of what we're thinking in terms of how those positions would be funded and how the phase-in program would begin in 2022.
Thank you, Janice. Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Through you to Janice. Thanks a lot, Janice, for all that information. And I'm certainly not being critical of your recommendations. I'm just a bit confused. First of all, the facilities and maintenance coordinator says it's realigned under the rec department. And I see some of the duties that I know that person did are in other jobs, like the corporate and marketing coordinator would be working with contractors and suppliers and managing budgets. So will we have a facilities and maintenance coordinator like we had before, or will that person be working in the rec department now totally?
Yeah, so that change was approved with the report that came forward to council in December of 2020. So it was a realignment of that job. So it went from the facilities maintenance coordinator, project coordinator to the facilities maintenance coordinator. So that job now is more focused on our existing facilities and working through the projects that we have in our budget for upgrades to our facilities, just general maintenance requirements. Will be active in terms of maintaining the needs for the facilities and helping with the planning for budget over a longer period of time. So that position does now report to the manager of recreation services. So when that was changed, certainly some of the project coordination would now fall on Mike, the manager of recreation services, for some of the projects. He would support the facilities maintenance coordinator in that. Some of the project coordination, I guess an example in terms of the communications and marketing position is more aligned with some of the marketing programs. So working where we have some contractors or consultants developing some programs for us, actually managing those contracts. Certainly with some of the more community development type projects we have, like the Trail Town project, that position was involved in getting some of those components of that project done, such as the mural, the bike racks, the bike repair station, that sort of thing. Yeah, so does that answer your question?
So we still do have a facilities and maintenance coordinator, only some of the jobs have been shifted around.
Yes, that's right. And as I mentioned with the climate change coordinator, the existing title of that position, the maintenance of the energy management plan and all of the reporting and the data collection for that was shifted out of the former position into the climate change coordinator position.
And I just have one other question. I'm not disputing the need for the deputy fire chief, but some of the duties that were listed would be support fire safety and inspection program, prevention and public education. That all seems to be jobs that the fire prevention officer would do.
Yeah, so the main responsibility in many of those cases for sure is the fire prevention officer. But again, what this would do is provide us a little bit of depth to support those duties, maybe at a bit higher level, and also when that person isn't available, to have some resources to support those functions as well.
And then training was also mentioned. So would that just be assisting Mike Goebel?
No, this position would take the lead role, would be responsible for managing the training program for the department.
So Mike would not be doing that any longer?
Well, this person would take over the management role of the training program. I think in the shorter term, I don't think we would eliminate the part-time position. I think you'd really want to allow for some time for transition in the department. I think there will still be a need for support for delivery of the program and that sort of thing, where that part-time position would continue to fill some of that role over time. As people move on, then I think we would reevaluate that, or as things change, we would reevaluate that.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's important to have a permanent person responsible for training. I assume this has all been discussed with Mike and the fire prevention officer, and like, this isn't news to them.
No, it was a committee of Gord, Randy, Ted, Mike, and myself and Kim.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's all.
Sure.
Thank you, through you. I agree with the addition to the fire department. I think it's necessary for succession planning. So I do have a question, though, with regards to the financial person. Because they're working on asset management, and it looks like it's going to be for around 3 years, was it looked at that it could be a contract position for that job?
Well, yeah, and I think in terms of developing the asset management plans, that's certainly something that was considered. I guess the thing where we're trying to get to is we would like to have the resources in place to we don't really want it to be a plan that's just developed and then sat on a shelf. We want to make sure that we have the resources in place that can really push through with that plan and really integrate it into our operations, into our budget processes, and into our decision-making processes. So the resources to do that, really, it is an ongoing role, as opposed to just creating the plan and walking away.
Okay, and in the past, FCM provided funding grants for asset management. Do you think they're going to appear again? That could go towards the funding for this position?
That's a possibility. I think that funding is more geared to consulting and contract, that sort of thing. We do have the OSIF funding, though, that is available to support asset management in our operations. So that funding would be used to support this position.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, through you to Janice. With regards to the climate change coordinator, how much of that community transportation grant will cover the wages for that position until 2025 per year? How much? Okay, so basically at, say the high end there is 30, so that's 50 grand. So it basically costs us maybe $10,000 a year for that position. If we pay 50, right, at 30, if she goes to the high end at 31, as opposed to the 26. Okay, so for $10,000, now we've got somebody looking after our solar and some of the facilities. Yeah.
I'm sorry, my microphone wasn't on. Yeah, so all of those types of duties, and certainly with waste diversion as well, public education, the position.
Yeah,
has-
all the stuff we.
Yeah,
So out of that 40,000, then what's left over to actually help fund the link? If we use 40,000 up it towards the salary, what do we have to help offset the link cost?
Overall, we have, oh. Originally had 1.5. I think overall, I believe it's about 1.8 million we have to support that program to 2025.
Till 2025. And you're confident that if we create this, or create this full-time position,
Mhm.
we'll still have enough money to fund that link transport?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Okay, because you know where I stand on this thing, where, I'm not big on this position to begin with. I thought, when we got the hybrid car, it was a gimmick. I think we could all agree on that, because it took 2 years for us to push this thing through, as basically, besides you weren't here. It was gimmicky for us as a council. And now, we've now got the car, now we're putting this position in. So I just want to make sure that it's really not costing the taxpayers directly. I mean, indirectly, yes, through the feds, but not directly here, that this position is self-sustaining, and it's not really coming out of the pockets of the township.
Yes, so we do definitely have a provincial grant that would support it. Once that grant goes away, then for sure we would have to fund the position.
So then
Yeah.
do we put it on a contract until then? As long as that grant's alive?
Well, I think the thing that we really, I think it's not just that, like, that is a big part of what the position does in terms of managing the link, and will be going forward. But we have other requirements legislatively through the province with, again, the energy management plan. We have an approved climate change action plan. So that's been approved by council. So basically we have the direction to try and go away and make something happen, get some of those initiatives going. So there's more to it than just that. And I think, sustainability was a big part of our strategic plan when we went through our strategic plan, and this waste diversion, all of those efforts to try and prolong the life of our landfill site. There's a lot of other good things that this
Same
position
stuff.
is going to do for the community. Yeah.
So
Okay, colleagues, I need a motion. This, move the report. Is there a seconder? Good. All those in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Okay, colleagues, we'll now into the consent agenda. Who would like to pull items? Okay, Sherry. which one?
8A.
8A. Don?
5B2, 6I, 8D. That's it.
So 5B2, 6-5, and 8B. How about this side? Yes.
Correspondence, so that would be 6.3.
6, 3. I don't want to get this wrong at the end. So, 6, 3, I think I had, let me see if I have. That's good. So let us begin then with 5B2. The 5B2. So that's the fireworks one?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
I just want to be certain I understand this. So from what I understand when I read the bylaw is that commercial fireworks can only be used on specific holiday weekends and when the township has their event at Polar Fest. And I think maybe the one in the summer, the Shamrock Festival. And then people can set off fireworks at any other time as long as they aren't commercial ones. Am I understanding that correctly?
So this policy does not regulate consumer fireworks. That's covered under the Explosives Act. People can purchase consumer fireworks in many locations. So this policy is not intended to try and manage consumer fireworks.
So how does this change then from the way things worked before?
So previously, really, the only thing that it's changing is it's specifying that on township-owned property, display fireworks can only be approved by the fire chief, because that's who has to approve the displays through the Explosives Act, can only be approved on those long weekends that are noted there, as well as in conjunction with any township-approved festivals.
Okay, so let's say, for example, a trailer park or an Airbnb, they could set off fireworks at any time.
Fireworks that people can purchase at the corner store,
Yes.
yes, this does not cover those fireworks.
But these corner store fireworks, are they the big commercial ones?
No.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
All right. That's fine. I
For any,
understand.
for any commercial or display fireworks, people are required to have accredited, that's not the right word, certified technicians to purchase and to let off the fireworks. So they're very different than the ones you purchase in the corner store.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're going in orders. Oh, sorry.
Could I just follow up? So one of the reasons I think this came forward was because of the multiple fireworks displays down at the Lakeville Campground, which is township-owned property. So with the explosive fireworks, like the huge ones, obviously this bylaw deals with that, but further to Donna's question, then if some of the trailer park people wanted to actually go and buy some consumer, corner store fireworks, could they set them off, say, from the beach or from the point?
So right now, the campground does have rules that says, as part of their operation, that those types of fireworks aren't allowed. So that would be something that I think we would carry through in any future versions of the campground rules. The campground has traditionally had these August long weekend. They've traditionally had a display fireworks event on that weekend for many, many years. And it's always been properly approved and undertaken by licensed technicians. Thank you.
There we go. Okay, so that's 5B2, then we're on 6.3. Who has 6.3? Yeah,
Yeah, I think that was me. This was with regards to the announcement of the funding on the website link that goes through to my question is, we're getting 1.068, 1,068,400 through the oomph for 2022. And I'm just wondering, is that pretty much the same as we have had the last couple of years? Is it up or is it down?
I think Lane's online. He could probably give you the exact figure, but in general, I can tell you it's down just a little wee bit.
Lane, are you there?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, the decrease is $100 over this year.
Okay, so that gets us to 6.3, and then we are on 6.5.
Yes, that's me, through you, Mr. Mayor. This is a request from QP for municipal councils to pass a motion, because apparently, and I would want to ask staff if they think this is necessary, because it's related to OMER's underperformance in the last several years. It says in 2020, OMER's reported a 2.7% loss, and that's never good for a pension fund. So QP is asking municipal councils to pass a motion calling for a third-party expert review into the investment practices of OMER's. So I just want to ask the advice of staff if we should make that motion. That would be helpful.
So we have received some information with respect to this from AMO as well, and AMO in association with the Municipal Employer Pension Center of Ontario. So they've provided some updated information, and we can send this out to council. It was part of an AMO watch file that came out, so I'm not sure if council members get all of those. But they did provide some updated performance information with regard to OMERS, which is, significantly rebounded. And basically, they are not in support of requesting this type of review. They are supportive of the approach that OMERS is taking at this point.
Okay, that's fine, as long as you're satisfied.
I think we rely on AMO for those types of.
Yeah. That's fine. Just, I didn't know any other information, but it sounded a bit alarming in this bit of correspondence.
Okay. So then we'll go on to the next one, which I believe is 8A. Sure.
Thank you, through you. There is a request for endorsement for physician recruitment supports, and I just wanted to give council a little bit of background as to what the discussion was. At our last EDBC meeting, we heard that there's a doctor retiring in Bridge North, and there is a doctor that's needed at the Morton Community, or at the Morton Center. The lack of doctors in our area would be read as interesting headline until you're the one that receives a letter that says your doctor is going to retire, and you will no longer have a doctor for anyone. And at this point, there are many people relocating to our area, and they have to keep the doctors that they left and travel great distances because there's not one available here. The EDBC thought there was a grant available from the province to underserviced areas to attract doctors. And I think if you remember back when we were talking about physician recruitment with our council, we received a report that in places like Duro-Dummer that were considered underserviced, they could get a grant of, I think, $65,000, was it something like that, Janice? And we didn't have it available to us because we weren't thought of as underserviced. So I contacted our MPP, Dave Smith, and asked him why the grant was no longer available. And he told me that every area of the province is underserviced right now when it comes to physicians, so they're not going to offer that grant. As was reported in the Examiner, the county heard from Maria Gomez and Duff Sprague from PPH about our doctor situation. I'm appointed to the Physician Recruitment Task Force through the county and will be meeting with these individuals along with the county CAO, Sheridan Graham, and Warden Jones to set up what next steps have to happen to ensure that we put our best foot forward to try and bring doctors to our area. I would suggest that after the meeting takes place, we haven't got a date set yet, I will report back to the EDBC and council with additional information on the way forward. I also don't think the province can just throw up their hands over this. The Minister of Health must take steps to attract large numbers of doctors. I would ask council to support our seeking a delegation at Roma with the Ministry of Health to speak to the issue. And if necessary, we can cancel that delegation if it's not needed. So that's what my request is. It isn't what the recommendation was. So I would ask council to support that. I'll move it.
Second by Gary. All those in favor? Carry. Okay.
Thank you. The second part of the endorsement was to recruit members to join our Economic Development and Business Committee for the remainder of the term. And at this point in time, we still have a member that hasn't put in her resignation. So I would ask that we look for one member at this point in time. And I don't know if the rest of council will support that. Okay.
Moved by Anita, seconded by Donna, or do you have a comment on it? Okay, all those in favor? Carry.
Thank you.
Okay. Then, so we see B and C are fine. 8D, that would be Donna.
Yes, thank you very much. Through you, this is regarding a request from the Smith Ennismore Police Services Board to include its resolution number 2821 to include $6,000 in our budget for traffic calming tools, including a portable speed awareness sign. We have a speed awareness policy, which is being requested by other municipalities to use as a guide. And we have been on a path to promote public safety on our roads. We have done our due diligence and wish to promote our policy further in 2022. We started with Road Watch, and it has been helpful to a certain extent, especially with local erratic driving. These drivers are much easier to track and get a license plate number because they tend to be local and habitual in certain areas. Speeders are much more difficult to track with Road Watch because they fly through areas and it's hard to get a plate number. We have ordered more signs in the community policing budget, so we still plan to further promote Road Watch. Our next step was to purchase a black cat device that identifies speeding occurrences in various places throughout the township. The data gives us times and places where speeding occurs. Even if the initial graph indicates low, moderate, or high speed enforcement data, it also records times of day when there are more significant speeds. Officers are deployed to these areas when time permits, but it's a slow process to ticket everybody. And we realize that the best speed awareness tool is to educate drivers. The portable speed awareness board, excuse me, can be moved to various areas to remind drivers of their actual speed. And it does work to slow down traffic. That's why they are usually placed in school zones. The speed awareness board that we are recommending is a solar device. And we have consulted with Rick Dunford to see if his staff has the manpower and the ability to move the sign from area to area. The speed awareness sign that we propose to purchase or hope to purchase is from Northline, the same company that sold us the Black Cat, is $4,325 plus tax. And we wish to order extra mounting brackets to make it easier for public works staff when moving the device. So that's why we put $6,000 in the budget to accommodate for the extra brackets. Further public education is planned in doing an online campaign talking about speeding issues in the township, the Road Watch program, the Black Cat device, and hopefully the new speed awareness board. The Black Cat and the speed awareness board work hand in hand. So we feel that it would be very helpful to move forward with this. We also had the OPP adjust our Black Cat stats to reflect a 15% tolerance rather than their 15-kilometer over tolerance, because we found that it wasn't being really helpful to identify speeding. So for an example, if a vehicle was traveling 50 kilometers an hour, 15-kilometer over would trigger issuing a ticket. With the 15% tolerance, traveling 50 kilometers an hour, 7 kilometers over would trigger speeding awareness for the Black Cat data. So I would like to move this recommendation, and I look for a seconder to put this recommendation on the table for discussion with the rest of council.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to second Donna's motion. I think it's a wonderful idea. I'm going to assume that the speed awareness board, the portable speed awareness board, is somewhat similar to what they've installed around the area of Woodview, north of Lakefield, which definitely helps. And I think there's also then the speed awareness board right coming up to the school in Lakefield. Now I think those are, they're mounted and they stay there, whereas the ones around the Woodview area, they are on wheels and they can be moved. So so long as Lakefield can borrow it once in a while, I'm happy to support this
I
motion.
think it would be exactly the same as the Black Cat, that we will deploy it all over our municipality.
Thank you, through you. So then I guess what percentage does Lakefield Police Services kick in for that board?
Well, they didn't, to my knowledge, they didn't contribute anything to the Black Cat, but they are taxpayers in our municipality. And just the same as we have, we'll be putting it on, we can put it on highways or county roads, but people that live on those roads are taxpayers in our township, and they deserve the same type of service as everybody else.
So I'm looking at these reports here from the Black Cat. So it has the Black Cat. So first of all, there's not 52 of them, meaning 52 weeks. So it's not out every single week, the Black Cat somewhere.
Well, it depends when it's requested.
Okay, so it only goes out on request.
That's my knowledge, isn't it, Tanya?
Yeah, let me just check with staff. Tanya?
That is correct. So it either goes out based on a request from the public, perhaps a request from council, or if the OPP sees fit. If they're having an issue in a specific area within Smith or Endorsement, they may put it out at their own discretion, as long as there hasn't been a request. Like if they don't bump a request that has been made by staff, council, or a community member.
So then, in looking at these stats, and even with the reduced numbers of, 8 kilometers over now is the enforcement, as opposed to 15, where they're actually going to write a ticket. They're not writing a ticket at 8 unless you're a complete knob. So there's no, I haven't seen a major speeding issue, so I don't know what this accomplishes the board. And I get, yeah, it gives them notification. You see that little flash come at you, and you go, oh, geez, that's an immediate, foot off the gas. Oh, it's 5 o'clock at night. No, there's no school now. It's not a 40, it's a 50. So you keep going. So I guess the question is, how does it stop speeding is my question.
Well,
For either
the
staff or-
Black Cat doesn't stop speeding. It informs us. And like I said before, even though you see low, medium, moderate, high, we get, and I don't know what was, I didn't check what was sent to you, but we get a graph
Yep.
of all the speeds. And there are certain times of the day, like one that really stands out in my mind was when it was first put on Gifford Drive. There were 2 days of the week at 3 p.m. that somebody was traveling at 100 kilometers an hour. So it's really good information to have. And that is the types of information that the police use to know when they need to be at different areas. But the Speed Awareness Board is really more for public education. And it's just another tool to help us educate the public on the high speeds. We're seeing a different demographic in our community. A lot of people are moving here permanently from the GTA, and they're used to traveling at higher speeds. And so that is believed, the police believe that's causing part of the issue. So I know there's not one single thing that's going to make a huge difference, but if we get all these things together, hopefully it'll gradually start to educate the drivers and reduce the speeds. And also, you've heard from people on Fairburn Street, and of course that's your ward, so you feel you have to do something to help them, so you contact Chris Galliazan asked for the black cat to go out. So if we had a speed awareness board, we could put that out as well. So then it helps people to see, it demonstrates the fact that we're actually trying to do something. It's a very difficult problem to solve, as you might guess. Ron can attest that every police services board meeting, we probably spend 2 hours talking about speeding. And there's not too much we can do. So this is just another progression in our speed awareness sort of toolkit in order to try and change some of the habits.
Perfect. Thank you. Great explanation tonight. However, though, with no disrespect to my counselor from Lakefield, unless they're going to pony up and Smith and Ennismore are paying for this, I don't know why it would be in Lakefield because Peterborough police have one. So wouldn't they take that out to Lakefield? So as long as it's staying within Smith and Ennismore, I don't believe it should be going to Lakefield because Peterborough police have one. And I think that caveat needs to be in there as well. That it's for Smith and
Do
Ennismore.
you want to add that to the
If
recommendation?
I could, and then I'll second it.
It's already set.
I'll support it.
Will the mover and the seconder agree to the change? No, they do. So it's a friendly amendment. Okay.
And so you've recorded the caveat.
All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, colleagues. And then we need a motion to accept the balance of the consent agenda. Moved by Sherry, seconded by Anita. All those in favor? Okay, that takes us to no petitions tonight. So council portfolio updates. Councillor Ballantyne.
Very busy.
I can start somewhere else if you want.
Okay, it's okay. I'm ready. The library, as I've been reporting for months, is doing their online auction, and it's on right now, and it's on until November the 12th. And it looks like we're raising some fairly decent money for some of the items, but we can always use more people bidding. And yeah, encourage you to have a look. I think my other portfolio, the Police Services Board, I think we've covered the business for this evening. The Recreation Committee will be meeting tomorrow, and Jerry probably has some updates on that. And the link, this is like really exciting, for November the 1st to the 5th. Route 31, the Curve Lake Lakefield, had 119 ridership, but Route 32, the Ennismore Bridge North, had 201. And that's the highest ridership since the link was launched. So that's a really good news story.
Good. Thank you.
And that's it for me.
Sherry.
Thank you, through you. We had several winners at the Kawartha Chamber of Commerce Awards. They are: the Lifetime Achievement Award went to Harry Pearson. The Outstanding Business Achievement went to Beechwood Resort. Commercial Development or Renovation went to Kingdon Timber Mart. Customer Service Excellence went to Buns and Sweets in Bridgenorth. Retailer of the Year was Lockside Trading. Service Sector Excellence was Hendren Funeral Homes. And if a letter could go out again, congratulating the winners from council, I'd appreciate that. Thank you. A new business has opened on the 8th line across from Kingdon Timber Mart, Lakefield Furniture. Lee Etherington makes live edge pieces and wood furniture. They also carry painted wood projects. They're open Friday to Sunday, 10 to 5. There's a new store on Lakefield Road near the Selwyn Outreach Church called the Whatever Shop. They sell new and used clothing and gift baskets. They're open Wednesday through Sunday. And finally, the M&M franchise store in Lakefield is for sale. Thank you.
Jerry.
Moving to the franchise.
The franchise.
The Public Works, they're finishing up ditching, getting ready for winterization. and the Park and Rec guys, everything's running along smoothly. I'll know a little bit more tomorrow. Mike was unavailable today for a full comprehensive update, so I'll know something a little bit better next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to thank you for your words at the beginning of the council meeting with regards to Remembrance Day. And I also saw that the Ennismore Cairn, which was dedicated or whatever on Sunday, I saw pictures on Facebook. Looks like a lovely memorial. Unfortunately, I had to work. Obviously, tomorrow there's Remembrance service at Buckhorn. There's one Thursday at Lakefield. And each year, Remembrance Day, I usually lay a wreath on behalf of the people of the Netherlands for the liberation of Holland. And so during the Second World War, my parents always taught me to be very thankful to the Canadian troops for liberating their home country. We did have a discussion at our Municipal Heritage Committee with regards to the register. So a report will come to council. I think there's only 2 people that requested not to have their property on the register. So it looks like it'll be a good list that comes forward to council for approval. I understand, just piggybacking on your communication about the link. I understand that Trent University, a lot of Trent University students are using the link, and that there's some funding that comes from Trent towards the link, which is awesome. Awesome. Lakeville Ladies Night Out, which I haven't had a chance to check out, is tonight and next Thursday night, or next Tuesday night, from 5 to 8 p.m. in Lakefield. Have you been to any last week? Yeah, I haven't had a chance to go yet. And with regards to, I think at least one other council member may have received a phone call from someone involved with our fire department with regards to the vaccine. This particular person is in agreement with the policy. I personally am in agreement with the policy as well. I obviously haven't started growing horns or a tail, having been double vaccinated. But I think one thing that I'm seeing more and more, both with my other job and in essential workers and frontline workers, with regards to mandatory vaccines, we've gone from hero to zero in a matter of a few short months. The person had suggested that maybe if we could just delay the termination date by a few weeks for the policy. I don't know if it'll make any difference. I think I do understand why everyone that's involved with the township, whether it is our firefighters or staff, volunteers, committee members, or whatever. I do believe in double vaccination, full vaccination. But I know that there are some who, are hesitant for whatever reason. But anyway, I'm just putting it out there if we could delay the termination date by a few weeks, and the answer is probably no.
Thank you. My report. So a number of things. First off, and just adding to something that Donna said in terms of the library. The library did adopt its own vaccination policy. It's very similar to that of the township. On from the county, a couple of really 3 things. So, well, one, Sherry really already dealt with it, and that was the healthcare professionals attracting doctors. So we talked about that. That was a very good presentation that was made at County Council. We also heard from our consultant on our lands needs analysis going forward, and there were some. This is preliminary at this point. It's going to be open to public hearings going forward, but they're anticipating, as similar to the province's projections, that over the next 30 years, our county will see around an increase of around 20,000 people. That's a ballpark figure. One of the things that came out of that presentation, in which county passed, is a request that the intensification target for our built-up areas, which is basically the area in Lakefield that is currently built, not the greenfield, but the part that the province has set an intensification target of 40%, which is just really not something that's possible for us to do. So the county council has agreed to petition the province to lower that intensification target so that more of our growth can be outside of that built-up area. They've done some estimates by different communities. That's still to be worked out, and there'll be additional reports on that. The adoption of the estimated growth will allow for the county to move forward on its DC study. So that's sort of the next part of what they're going to do, and there will be public engagement as they move forward on this process. The other thing we heard was from PKED on our third quarter report to us on job growth, and it really highlighted two inhibitors. One is the lack of employment lands in the region overall, and there was a determination by council, and I think you stand by, there'll probably be further action in terms of trying to encourage the development of more serviced employment lands. The other thing, though, that they pointed out was our challenge with labor force, in attracting labor force. And it was interesting, in that growth analysis that was done, they did an analysis of all of the peripheral communities. So those are the communities on the edge of the GTA. So we just sort of do an arc around the GTA. And although we all of us had one of the demographic realities was the same for us, and that was the outward migration of youth. So people, when they're a certain age, when they would be looking to enter the workforce, many of them leave and go to the GTA. Many of them try desperately later on in their careers to find a way back, but they tend to do that. But there were two things that were a little bit different for our county from the others that they examined. One, and this will come as no surprise, was the age of our migrants. So migrants are people moving within the province. We tend to attract an older migrant in our community than in some of the other surrounding GTA communities. And again, I don't think that's a great deal of a surprise. The other difference between us and most of the others is we have far fewer inbound immigrants that come into our area than go into the other area. And so that's a potential source of employees. And if they're not coming to our area, that creates part of the challenge that we meet. And the other thing that came up in that discussion, and this is not something that is unique to our area, and that's the affordability of housing. That's faced right across the GTA. I mentioned the lack of healthcare professionals. In terms of public health, so as I suspect you've noticed that 2 weeks after the loosening of restriction, cases have begun to once again climb in Ontario. That's true across the province. It's also true here. Last week, that's the week ending on Sunday, we had 24 cases. The week before, we had 9. The first 2 days of this week, we've had 7. So it's not the explosions that we've seen in the past, thank goodness. I'm convinced that vaccination is a big part of the reason why we're not seeing an explosion. But we are moving up. The weekly average in the province took a jump. One of the statistics, and it's available online, 980 out of the 1,925 cases, we're going to hit 2,000 cases probably before the end of the year. But 980 of those cases are for people under the age of 30. And if you look at it, there's a direct correlation between the rate of vaccination for that population cohort. And that's, for the 2029, it's one thing, but obviously at the moment, anybody under the age of 12 can't be vaccinated. So you've got a large piece of your population in that cohort that isn't vaccinated. In terms of progress, these numbers are as of last reported, which would be last Wednesday. 86 point, these are people 12 and over. 86.8% of our population has a second dose, a first dose, and 83.6 a second dose. Yeah, that's right. We're about 2 points behind where the province is at. Although they can't do this exactly because postal codes straddle between the city and the county, so it's hard to get really accurate figures. But the rate is about 15 points lower in the county than it is in the city in terms of vaccination rate. But again, you have to take that with a grain of salt because they can't do it exactly. You may have heard that there are now a new set of policies around third doses or booster doses, subject to there being 6 months between your second and what would be your third dose. So healthcare professionals and certain professionals working in congregate living settings or working in congregate living settings, Indigenous adult households and Indigenous adults and members of their household. Individuals who've received 2 doses of AstraZeneca or a dose of Janssen. So you could have received Janssen from somewhere other than in Ontario because we haven't distributed it here. If you're age 70 and over, and as time goes on, it'll get rolled out to the rest of the population, not dissimilar to when the original rollout was done. And just a couple of other comments I want to make. I meant to make this last time, and I forgot to mention it, I think, or I forgot to prove it, and I did mention it. But the old Rosemere Manor, where they did a wonderful job there. Pardon? Yeah. And in talking to the folks that did that development, they had high praise for the staff at the township for the work of working with them in a heritage building and getting all of that done. So I meant to mention that, and I forgot. I don't know the answer to that. I would say it certainly is substantially because when I was there were a good number of tenants that not full yet. Okay. I need to mention this. The event in Ennismore on the weekend was a wonderful event. Donna and Sherry were there, and it was great to see the number of people that were able to come out and do that, and they put on a wonderful program. I had an opportunity last week. You may recall it was Treaties Week. I attended the lunch and learn that was put on in terms of that, and had an opportunity to participate in that. And I will be doing the Remembrance Day representing the county. So I'll be doing the city event Thursday. So that's my report. Under other new and unfinished business, we had the delegations to Roma. So we passed one resolution earlier that we're going to do the physicians. The other one that we talked about was the long-term care, and that had, I've had some discussions about it, and it would be there appears to be a number of or some structural issues in trying to get those investments to occur. And so the thought would be that we would have a discussion about those and then some specific conversations about our own community. So that would be a second one. I don't know, Sherry, am I enunciating that correctly? Yeah. So if colleagues are okay, because I know Sherry, you're attending, right? And I'm attending. Is anybody else? We're the only two, so we'll do it. So if everybody's comfortable with that, okay, and do we need a motion to that effect?
No, we had the motion in regards to long-term care at the last meeting, I believe, and
Okay.
then the one earlier at this meeting.
Okay, so we have two then that we're going to do, or request. We're going to do. Okay, anything else under other new and unfinished business? Gary?
Through you to Janice. We're trying to get back to normal through this COVID thing. When are we going to get somebody to answer the phone on a full-time basis at the desk rather than going through voicemail hell and me almost putting it into the rhubarb trying to dial extensions? And yeah, how are we not having somebody answer the phone at this point? I guess is my question. Everybody else has people back answering phones.
Yeah, so I think for the most part, if there is somebody available, then the phone is being answered. And if somebody knows an extension, if the person is at their desk, they are answering the phone. The times that it wouldn't be as if people are tied up already on the phone or with the customer. So, but I'll follow up and on that, Jerry.
Yeah, I don't know how many times I've called here and I don't know about the rest of council. I haven't got a live person in 2 years.
Okay.
And I think the chances of that are astronomical, aren't they? I would think.
It sounds like it.
Maybe.
Donna?
Yes, I agree with that too. I never get a live person. And I know the last time, Janice, I asked for extension numbers and you did send the extensions of the managers, but it would be, if there's not going to be a live person answering the phone, it would be very helpful to have like Mike Garside's extension, Mike Richardson's, Jennifer's. No, just the people that we need to contact on a regular basis. Sometimes if I don't know, I call Angie and she tells me what it is, but I hate bothering her all the time.
Yes, I actually thought something had been sent out, so I'll follow up on that and
It's
just
just,
make sure.
was just the managers. It wasn't the people at the, like Jennifer and Mike Garside. Well, I guess we have Mike Richardson's. It
Yeah,
was just the managers.
okay, yeah, that I will have to check back on that. I thought it was the full list that had gone out, but
Okay, that would be great.
Yeah.
So perhaps the next meeting, you just give us an update. Okay, anything else? Oh, Tanya?
Sorry, council, I just noted that at the last meeting, in terms of the delegations to Roma, we actually just discussed it. We had a note of it. We did not pass a motion. So if council would like to pass a motion, that's fine. Otherwise, we have direction just in the notes.
Okay. Leah, seconded by Donna, all in favor? Long-term care, okay, good. So that takes us, I believe, to our bylaws. We have two bylaws here to we're formally adopting the rooming, boarding, and lodging house bylaw, and we're adopting the fireworks policy. I believe those are the two. So moved by Anita, seconded by Donna, all those in favor? And a confirming bylaw by Sherry and Donna, all those in favor? And adjournment by Gary, seconded by Donna, all those in favor? Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you, staff. Very efficient. We will be back here, I think, on the 8th next week, next Friday, right? Or next Thursday. Next